The United States enjoys a standard of living that much of the world envies: modern infrastructure, a powerful military, and a consumer-driven economy. But what if I told you that part of this prosperity isn't entirely paid for by Americans themselves? What if British and European citizens, through their taxes and economic choices, are quietly helping to sustain it? This isn't a tale of charity or coercion. It's a consequence of one simple fact: the US dollar is the world's global reserve currency. Let's unpack what that means and why it matters. To understand this, we need to know why the dollar holds this privileged position. After World War II, with Europe and Asia in ruins, the United States emerged as the world's economic titan. At the 1944 Bretton Woods Conference, nations agreed to peg their currencies to the dollar, which was itself tied to gold. Though that gold link broke in 1971, the dollar's dominance stuck. Today, it's the currency of global trade. Oil is priced in dollars, most commodities too, and central banks hoard it as a safety net. Over 60% of foreign exchange reserves worldwide are held in dollars. Why? Trust. The US economy is vast, its political system stable, and its financial markets deep. That trust makes the dollar the world's anchor. Being the reserve currency isn't just a title, it's a superpower. Here's how it plays out. The US government spends far beyond its means. $34 trillion in debt as of 2024, with annual deficits in the trillions. To cover this, it issues treasury bonds, essentially IOUs. Normally, borrowing at this scale would cripple a nation, driving up interest rates or crashing its currency. But not the US. Foreign governments and investors, especially in Europe and Asia, snap up these bonds, holding $7.9 trillion worth. The UK alone owns $765 billion. This demand keeps US borrowing costs low, around 4 to 5%, when other nations might pay far more. It's a lifeline that lets America fund its highways, its military, its tax cuts, its way of life, without breaking a sweat. Now, let's turn to Europe. When nations like Britain, Germany, or France buy US debt, they're lending America money on the cheap. Economists estimate this saves the US $100 to $200 billion a year in interest costs, money that props up living standards stateside. But there's a flip side. For Europe's roughly 200 million taxpayers, this isn't a direct tax, but it's a burden all the same. If Europe absorbs a third of this privilege, say $50 billion annually, that's about 250 euros per taxpayer. It's not cash they hand over. It's capital locked in low-yield US bonds, weaker export competitiveness from a strong dollar, or higher borrowing costs for their own governments. While Americans enjoy the fruits of this system, Europeans might face tighter budgets or slower growth. It's an invisible subsidy, woven into the fabric of global finance. Consider the contrast. The US runs deficits nearing 6% of GDP, fueling consumption and investment. Meanwhile, European nations often prioritize fiscal discipline. Germany's Black Zero policy, Britain's austerity measures. Their citizens feel the pinch through higher taxes or cuts to services, while their central banks prop up the dollar system. It's not a deliberate handout. It's the price of living in a dollar-driven world. And it's a system the US leans on heavily. Without this foreign appetite for its debt, America's borrowing binge would be far less sustainable. So, is this sustainable? Foreign ownership of US debt has slipped from 39% in 2018 to 23% today. China's diversifying, Europe's euro ambitions simmer, and cryptocurrencies loom on the horizon. Could the dollar be replaced? In the near future, it's unlikely. No rival, the euro, the yuan, or anything else, matches the dollar's scale, trust, or liquidity. For now, this exorbitant privilege endures, and with it, the quiet role of British and European citizens in upholding US prosperity. It's a stark reminder: in global economics, power isn't just earned, it's borrowed, often from those least aware they're lending. If this perspective shifts how you see the world, share it. Subscribe for more explorations into the forces shaping our lives. Until next time, thanks for watching.